Hey, this is Ray Melhorn, and this is Sketchbook walkthrough 4.5 to 5. I actually missed a section of the folder last time, and I felt I would be remiss if I did not include that in this video. And then I will go on to Sketchbook number 5. But, oh boy, this tripod setup is definitely an experiment. Um, So yeah, some characters I mentioned before, I believe, were a brief-lived roleplay character, Persephone Falcone, I think her name was. This was art for like icons for roleplay online. I don't know if it was Dreamwidth or LiveJournal, but yeah, was trying to get a middle-aged-ish figure there. Didn't end up doing a whole lot with the character, but there was some icons of her. This is a character I did some roleplay in a place called Heatherev with. But he didn't originate that way. He originated with just roleplay between my wife and I. And as you can see, the very first picture of him is extremely anime. He is supposed to be a child. Yes, he does have weird tattoo markings. But his name is Delwyn. I don't know that this one is much more realistic. You'll probably see more art of him later. This is before he was ever in Heatherev. This was like the very first concept art of the character. He really wanted those tattoos to get showed off, which is why he's missing a sleeve. And this is like a slightly older, definitely more realistic version of him. Still definitely cultish, but older. Not a baby cult anymore. Not quite a yearling either. And he comes from a very post-apocalyptic world, and that was actually going to be like where he was staying, his home, I think. So missed that in the last folder, and then that section of the folder was labeled for Delwyn, but it also had a bunch of art of Tildak, which is a character from the comics ElfQuest by Wendy Peeney. Was a big fan when I was like 14, 15, and then kind of came back to him later on. I won't show you my old 14, 15-year-old art of him, but I don't know where it is at this moment in time anyways. But now that I'm older, I feel like I've drawn him a little better, trying to mimic Wendy Peeney's style as well. But I think there's a digitally colored version of this one somewhere online, maybe. This really captures the more stylized faces that she's got. But yeah, hey, you can see his butt. What can I say? I didn't design the costume. Definitely was, doing some sketches, trying to get down how to draw him, because he is a very awkward, strange figure anatomically. This was, I think, probably from a role play. Didn't get very far, but I was trying to draw him with some other characters. Looks like probably some human characters. Probably that's Courtney Crumrin that's standing there, I'm guessing. My wife played Courtney Crumrin a lot. A little bit more realistic depiction of him facially wise, less stylized. Maybe trying to find my own way. Those wings are too short, definitely. But, him perched on a tree branch. So, I was trying to get down his design. Because he is a slightly awkward character to draw. So, some of these are better than others. The inked ones tend to be better because obviously I felt they were good enough to ink. Whereas the others were kind of getting his design down. So this is sketchbook number 5. Right off the bat, there is going to be some nudity. For some reason, I have a number of albino characters. Please don't read too much into that. But I was doing a series of tasteful nudes of my albino characters for whatever reason. I think I was working on fabric folds and anatomy, and I was just like, hey, what the heck. So this is Elar, who I've mentioned before, the white elf necromancer. Actually, his race is golden elves. They're supposed to be golden skinned with black hair, but you know, he is not. But yeah, I was going for some high contrast, bold colors of drapery and stuff. This is my character Silence. Yes, he is built. Honestly, I still question the genital anatomy I got going on there. His people don't really reproduce sexually. They're kind of almost like angels. So I think even at the time I wasn't quite sure what to put down there. But yeah, he's got a lot of scars. And then failed sketch, and it is more modest, but I never did finish the one of Damien Stockholm. This was a sketch for a very large painting that I did as a commission for a friend. Beautiful painting, came out excellent. Do not have it because I sent them the original. But yeah, I never finished the one of DS. I'm a little sad about that. I do feel like I was getting his anatomy down pretty well here. He's, you know, a little overweight, but also, my God, those arms. He's do not arm wrestle this man. He will win. Face is not so great, but never finished it. This was a whole long. Digitally, it's like one big, super long strip. But it was like how different characters of mine take their coffee. So at the top, we've got Diaz and Iakane, who will appear in the comics with him at some point, much later on. Fuzzy, whose real name is Daniel, he kind of is homeless. He'll take whatever he can get. Terrence Colburn, or TC, who is an alcoholic. Malene, who I would love to do more stuff with at some point. Yes, she is a crocodile person. Yes, that is a bone sticking out of her glass. I don't know if that's a human bone or not. Might be. Who knows? Continuing on, we've got a character that comes from some comic stuff that my wife has written, Hawker, and his kitty Sage. Yes, she does live in his jacket a lot. From some roleplay stuff, Marcus Rathbone. We got Persephone again. Old character, John Mitchell. I've tried doing comics of him before. They never got very far. His setting is in an alien planet, and it's very weird. Jeanette the Space Pirate, who you may remember from the Spire comics. Gonna come back to that for the sake of continuing this. Osen, who I mentioned before, my old Elven Thief character from D&D. Tam, who is the older version, original version of TC. Elar again, and Straviturius. I'm not sure I got his name right earlier when I was talking about him, but they're buddies. Technically, Strav is his servant, but they're buddies. Might be more than buddies. I don't know. Scarlet, who is basically a medieval version of Jeanette. The Black Warlock, who I don't do much with anymore. He seems to have his coffee in a wine glass. That tracks. Also, Osen should not be drinking coffee any more than Delwyn should. Not that Osen is a child, but she's mentally very childish. Nat, who used to deal with poisons, has his suspicion. Silence again. He does not speak, which is why somebody gave him the name Silence. But he does write, so. And the Librarian, which is actually supposed to be a Labyrinth fan character of mine. What I skipped over was Friend's character Thorn, and some different. There was an AU version of him that was a janitor. That's that one. But yeah. I wanted to continue the coffee thing. But that was the end of it with the librarian. I did art for, I'm trying to remember, was it called TGC? It was a monthly Gargoyles fan art contest that I got into, unfortunately, right in the very ending years of it. I think this was actually an illustration from a fan fiction. That's supposed to be Alex, like, as a teenager. And Puck and Goliath, obviously, in Xanatos. Again, there's a digitally colored version of this somewhere online. I probably put a gray streak in Xanatos' hair because he was supposed to be older. There's going to be a few entries from that art contest in this sketchbook. This is also actually supposed to be Tildak. He didn't always have the big bat wings. There was a character named Winnowill that transformed him, supposedly on his request. A little unclear on if he totally knew what he was getting into. But before that, he was what was known as a wind rider, or a glider. So, yeah, that's the kind of outfit that the other ones presented in the comics wear. So that's supposed to be him before he got transformed. And obviously, I was trying to draw. They ride these giant birds. I was trying to draw another one in the background, and it just never finished the picture. And Tildak with Kavi, which is a canon relationship. I thought they were adorable together. As much as I liked Dushine, I did like that relationship. We got some Labyrinth fan characters. I had a whole cast of Labyrinth fan characters. I had a whole comic idea plotted out at one point. This is the Wandering King. He does turn into a raven on occasion, and is part of a whole group of bird people, of which I felt that Jareth was also a part of. I don't know, that's just some bird sketches. Probably supposed to be ravens, but I don't know. Oh gosh, that's supposed to be Maggie from The Last Unicorn. I come back to this scene periodically where she first sees the unicorn and is so angry that she wasted all her virginal maiden years and didn't get to see a unicorn until she was middle-aged and used up. Which, I get that. I do. It's a concept that I think resonates with people the older they get. Those are some characters from Arcar, which I'm not going to talk about a whole lot on here, but that's Telv. I've probably showed art of Telv before. And this is Gethar, who is from way back in the past, before the slavery years. Might show up in, like, I don't want to say AU, but like prehistorical comics at some point. But then, and all mages have a personal symbol, so those are their personal symbols. Some luminaries, the aliens I talked about in another sketchbook. That's actually supposed to be Rat. That is crayon, like Crayola crayon. I was doing some experimentation with effects you could get with blending it and everything. So that's what was going on there, and kind of nice, kind of effective, very moody. Oh, that was Friend's character from way back when. I think her name was Christiania, with Tam. Blast from the past, basically, fan art. I'm not entirely clear on what's going on here. That is definitely Fisher, the fan character I made to be Courtney Crumrin's familiar. But why he's being chased by an apple with teeth, I am unclear. There was probably something that happened in roleplay that I've long since forgotten. The character Malene I was showing before, this is some of her people. They're a very voodoo heavy culture. So some of the clothing here is definitely based on on clothing you would see typical of people who are dancing in a ritual ceremony for voodoo. Um, I think they're supposed to be like ribbons wrapped around the tree. Yeah, I don't know. I had thoughts. I don't remember fully what they were. Um, this was for the monthly gargoyles contest again. This was their mascots. They had two mascots. So, um, again, there's a beautifully digitally colored version of this that exists. This was just the underlying sketchwork of Puck telling Alex stories about stuff in the Fey world, like, you know, back from his past. And in the background, we have the three ladies that show up in the Gargoyles cartoon a lot, chasing a white stag. So he's obviously telling Alex stories about the Fey world. Baby Alex. Back to the Labyrinth fan characters. This is the Wandering King again, and Maggie, his daughter. And you can see the dating on this. There's a lot of stuff in here since 2008. 1:58 a.m. Yeah. I've had insomnia my whole life, but I've gone through periods that were worse than others. And I believe this is Weech, the Goblin Cook, who is somewhat canon. She's in like the Brian Froud Labyrinth book, concept book, even though she's not in the movie. But yeah, so that's Maggie. This was going to be a page of the comic that I had planned out. I don't know how well you can see there. It is Jareth flying in through a window in his owl form and transforming to David Bowie. And he's supposed to be in the white costume that he's in at the end of the movie. And he's supposed to be like bowing, and there was obviously going to be text in here. And speaking before like a group council. You've got a tree person, an elf person, a giant troll thing, and a deer person, and a naga, and a centaur, and there's another bird person that's probably supposed to be Maggie, and a dwarf, and a satyr, another elven-looking lady. So yeah, it was supposed to be this like council of various people. Because I always had the idea that like the Goblin Kingdom and Labyrinth is simply one kingdom that is part of a larger world. It's all watercolor pencil. All the Labyrinth fan art you see in here is watercolor pencil. And I was getting really good with it for a while there. I don't know why I never finished this, apart from I did have a full script written out on a computer that crashed, and I lost the entire hard drive. Still mad about that. But on the other hand, it was fanfic, so I don't know. This is quite possibly the very first instance of this avatar symbol that I used for myself, the raven with the human hands. I had a dream, and I saw myself that way in the dream, which I couldn't actually see myself. I could just see my hands in front of me being used, but I could feel the rest of my body was like a bird's body, and that my arms were coming out from, you know, from this raven body. So yeah, that's kind of been an avatar for myself ever since. Another character for the Labyrinth fan comic. This is the Oracle Caspar, advisor to the Wandering King. He is an albino raven. And the really gross sketch that I skipped over here, that is supposed to be somebody holding a raven that they have sliced down the stomach, because it's an old form of oracle reading called haruspicy, which is where you read the intestines of an animal. So a witch tried to do that to him, which he particularly, she thought would be useful because he is himself an oracle fortune teller kind of person. He managed to survive somehow. Magic-y people. I don't know. Oh, right there. What happened to you, haruspicy? That's Maggie. So, yeah, he obviously, he kind of put himself together and stitched himself up badly and was convalescing, trying to recover. That's probably supposed to be the Wandering King there. So, yeah, I had a whole lot of story going on there. Very unfinished, but it looks like Moki and Boober from the Fraggles. What can I say? They're my favorites. Another one for the monthly Gargoyles contest. That is Gordon Ramsay with Broadway in the kitchen. Go figure. More Labyrinth fan art. Here we have the librarian who I mentioned before. As you can see, he is huge. He's supposed to be like 8 feet, I think. 8 feet tall. And yeah, was trying to actually draw Jareth and a random goblin in the middle there. We got kind of the family going here. The Wandering King and Maggie and Caspar in various bird states having a conversation on there's supposed to be kind of a gypsy wagon that they were riding in. I think that was a commission of somebody's gargoyle fan character. Teeny little Tildak. Oh my gosh. It's very well drawn, but clearly it was supposed to be part of another bigger picture. And I don't know what happened to the rest of whatever was supposed to happen on the page. I faintly see it looks like a much larger version of his picture sketched, his portrait sketched out there that didn't get finished. Here is the haruspicy happening, and in the Fall of the Intestines, we're seeing Jareth's fall at the end of the movie. There's even this at the back of Sarah's head. So she was predicting Jareth's fall at the end of the movie. I did warn nudity. A lovely little portrait of Maggie, just, hanging out with a lot of jewelry. Come on, Corvids love the sparkly things. I worked so hard on that. I remember I drew that on my birthday. I guess probably in 2008. I'm guessing. Some of the papers that are in between are just to protect the pages. So some of the pages, if I'm skipping over them, it's because they don't really have anything on them except smudges. But yeah, a bunch of fan art of the older Shadow. There was also some RP Online trying to draw the right type of gun. I'm not good at drawing guns. I'm not great at drawing mechanical stuff, period, but I'm not very familiar with guns. I'm not a fan of them in general. Don't spend a lot of time looking at them, so I guarantee I was looking at photo reference for that and just trying to get it down, because what can I say? He carries some very specific guns. This is also, I believe, a fanfic illustration, technically. Might be one of the fanfics by Tara LJC. I'm guessing. Guessing in vague memory. I got my hands on some gray tone markers, so I wanted to do some stuff with them. So we have the Shadow and Dirk Gently, which is a weird combination. Again, the older version of the Shadow, which my friend was playing. Clearly very annoyed at Dirk, as he should be. Not a winning combination. I cannot imagine they would get along. Random sketches. We got Fisher. We got Janitor Thorn. We have a Bartender Thorn. I think that was from some weird AU game. With his tattoos showing, which is interesting. And information about a flight back to visit my relatives in Michigan. I think that was supposed to be the Shadow younger in front of an airplane, but it never got very far. That was definitely a self-portrait of me drawing with headphones on. Why I never drew the eyes, I don't know. I just didn't finish. We have Splinter and the Baby Turtles. I think I was trying to get across who was who, even without the bandanas. So, I mean, this is clearly Mikey. That's probably Raph. And I'm guessing that's... Is Donnie or Leo the technical one? I think it's Donnie. And then Leo that's actually paying attention. But yeah. Oh, wow. Old bank account information. Let me not show that off. I'm not sure this page needs a page protector anyways, but some drawings. I think there was an idea of the shadow becoming a tiger, a black tiger at some point. Don't ask. Clearly gold metallic paint in the background, which is very pretty. Didn't finish putting the black on that one. Nice line art though. Some sketch art of Magneto. And Magneto in the morning using his magnetism powers to levitate the sugar spoon for his coffee. I mean, if you can, why wouldn't you? The shadow. For a while there, when I was bored, that is what I would draw. Oh, wow. This was some comic illustration notes of my trip to Michigan that I had dates and times for earlier. That's meeting my uncle for the first time since I was 2 months old. And that's my mom, and that's my dad. That's my uncle and his wife. And me and my grandmother both just kind of listening as everybody talks over each other. My God, so many people in my family talk over each other constantly. It just, yeah. And then I went to visit my friend Mel and her mom Karen, who unfortunately has since passed. Guys, I sort of remember we went to a store and I think Mel's bag must have knocked a candle off the table, and the cashier, who was very clearly queer, assigned male at birth, but very very feminine personality, was not mad at her. Oh, and this is my aunt, and they gave me a necklace that they all had the same necklace pendant thing. I probably do still have it. And family photo albums with grandma, which that was really cool to see. I couldn't tell you what year my grandparents were born. There was a little bit of an age gap between my grandmother and my grandfather. But my parents were born in 45 and 47 respectively. So you can kind of do the math from that my grandparents were, you're talking not much past the turn of the century there. So then if it's their ancestors, then you're going into the late 1800s, early 1900s. So it was cool to see historical photos. I grew up with my family across the country, so I don't know them as well as I would like. I must have colored these ones digitally, because I think I was trying to do the different coloring styles that I did them in as well. But obviously it was supposed to be for a profile image, me drawing. We got Fisher sliding off the page, Diaz, Dirk Gently, Tildak, Owen Burnett, John Mitchell, Maggie and the Wandering King and the Librarian. So just characters that I was drawing a lot at that time. Here we have a continuation of my vacation. My parents were looking for places up north, which they did after my dad retired, move. But yeah, they were so busy talking. They were looking for a place and they were so busy talking. And I was like, I think it's right there. And nobody heard me. And 10 minutes later, I'm like, we passed it. And they're like, why didn't you say something? And I'm like, I did several times. Nobody heard me. They were all too busy talking. My aunt got a computerized embroidery machine, which is funny because I ended up selling those later on. But yeah, they were all trying to figure it out, and it got to be like 1:30 in the morning, and I fell asleep on the couch because they were just all focused on playing with this sewing machine. And clearly some notes on the way home. I believe, well, this was 2009, so I don't know. I did fly back to see relatives in late September, early October of 2001 at one point, which, if you know your history, means that it was very shortly after September 11th. And that was a wild experience, but this was almost a decade later. Very faint sketch, but I believe it was supposed to be the Shadow and Batman, which there have been some comics of them together. That is the Shadow and Zatoichi from the series of the same name. Hard to find, all in Japanese and subtitled. But yeah, they have killed some bad guys. The Shadow and Zatoichi again, but chibi versions. Oh my gosh. Is there going to be a bunch of deer? There's going to be a bunch of deer. Oh, what is that game called? There's sort of a game that is, it's a game / screensaver with these deer, and I got very into it for a while. Endless Forest. So yeah, I was big on Endless Forest. A lot of people had just the wildest original characters in there, which in the game, this character would not have looked much like this. But people came up with crazy designs. But they were basically in the game itself. They were kind of like deer with people faces. So that was me trying to do photo reference for fawns and then get the human face structure on top of it. So I was trying to get down the visual look of these deer. And these are like, that was like designs for skins, but that's, a lot of these are, I don't know if it was commissions or just gift art that I did of other people's characters. Damien Stockholm fighting some zombies. I do love the pose. I do want to probably use that pose on the cover. There is a story with zombies. So consider that a preview for my comics someday. Dirk Gently and the cartoon Ghostbusters, the real Ghostbusters. Big fan of the cartoon. Grew up with it. But why that? I don't know. It's a sketchbook, you know. Sometimes you get ideas that don't go anywhere. That is also Endless Forest. That was my character. And that is more or less what he looked like in game. Because there was like a pelt you could wear that was like a magpie pelt. And then you could get poppies on your head. This was a fan character I came up with, Chaz. May or may not ultimately have been ending up as a trans mask person, but definitely some gender fuckery going on there. But yeah, she was supposed to be an agent working for the Shadow in the 1980s. Now we've hit 2010 in this sketchbook, so I was slow to use sketchbooks. I still am. Again, supposed to be the Shadow during the war. Supposedly he had facial disfigurement that happened during the war, maybe. He's one of those characters that the canon is kind of debatable. More Endless Forest deers. More of mostly my Endless Forest deer. His name was Terpsichore, or Terpsichore, after the Muse of Dance, because that's mostly what he did, was dance around like a derp. I didn't have a whole lot of character personality for him. He just struck me as not super bright. Just wanted to dance. Here we have a whole bunch of characters. These would all be people that I met. There's mine. And kind of played around with. There was a whole forum, so people were like talking. Yes, they had their character Holmes based off of Sherlock Holmes, I guess. There was one that was very Little Red Riding Hood-esque. I believe this is a better digital colored version of this. I think I called them imposters because I didn't draw them very well. This was going to be a concept for a larger painting that I never did. There were a whole bunch of flora and fauna you could find in the Endless Forest game. And there were a whole bunch of noises. There was a nice ambient background noise. You'd periodically even have like the deer bellow. They do make these deer make the wildest noises. People think deer are silent, but boy, especially around mating season, they make wild noises. But also in the background, you would periodically hear a duck quack. There were no ducks in the game. So I was always looking for the ducks. You could hear the ducks, but you could not see the ducks. Anyways, yeah, I'm not quite sure what was going on with this picture, but we've got a maiden and a mother or a crone, and she's got pomegranates, and you've got a dude dressed as a wolf in the background. There's definitely some like feminist symbolism going on there. Cantus from the Fraggles, again, unfinished art. Monster Day, February 16th of 2010. It was a day that a friend of ours came up with. It's the day after Valentine's Day, I believe, because you're supposed to buy discount Valentine's candy and draw monsters, and it just happened to coincide with Mardi Gras that particular year. So more deer people. I know I have digitally colored versions of these somewhere online. This was for a character profile page of my character. Again, it was all colored online. Another person's deer character that I believe is supposed to be a Periton. But boy, the antler structure they had was just fascinating. Hope I drew it okay. Another person's deer character. There were some beautiful designs people had. That's just a still life of some blackberry leaves. I can do realism when I'm up for it. But yeah, so that was just some nature drawing. Really beautiful picture. More deer characters. Oh god, this was a character concept for Theophage, a god-eating. I don't know what you would call him. You could call him a monster. He eats the gods when they're old and tired and ready to go away, so he's not actually as scary as he looks. More people's characters. Some concept art from some video game that I think my friend Mel was playing, and I was going to do a full picture, and I never did. More deer people. Another painting of the shadow that looks way better on the camera than it does in person, because the blacks are a little muddy and a little smoother in the picture. But boy, is that a typical shadow pulp ending kind of thing, that a lot of times the end villain, he doesn't kill them, he just kind of stands in the way while karma gets them, or stands out of the way while karma gets them. Teeny little attempts at goat sheep for Arakar, I think. Some the sketches, I was probably watching Zatoichi and trying to sketch him from what I was seeing on the screen. Way back in the day, my old website was crackmonkeyproductions.net. And I did have what I called crack monkeys that were all over the website. So this was going to be for obviously a 404 page not found and a page in progress kind of design. Basically website designs that didn't happen. And that was, I think, some design work. I was trying to make a logo for a friend's company, Umami Tea and Coffee, which she's still in business, but she doesn't live in Richmond anymore. Bumping the tripod. Weird roleplay art. I think it was supposed to be Ramirez from Highlanders, but he had a house and a whale. I don't know, man. Oh, yeah, it was definitely Highlander related. I used to roleplay in a place called the Nexus where there was all kinds of wild shit. But yeah, that's supposed to be Connor McLeod. Christopher Lambert's face is so difficult to draw. I adore him, but Highlander fan character Kavan, which I have never done a whole lot with, but he has a Kopesh, which is an Egyptian sword. And my idea was he kind of looks like a college student. He had his first death young. So he carries kind of like a hiking style backpack as a college student. And the Kopesh is short enough to fit in that kind of a backpack. And it has a rigid frame, so that's kind of an excuse. Because boy, Highlander does not explain very well how they keep their swords. My wife and I had a long role play with Balthazar Blake from Sorcerer's Apprentice and Connor McLeod, and I know this was going to be a drawing of them like drinking together. And I did not finish it, and I wish I had. But my God, there's a lot of crap in Balthazar's shop, so that would have been a lot to draw. Oh, that was a weird character concept that got executed more fully in another drawing somewhere else. Here's me also trying to get Christopher Lambert's face down from Highlander. I love that he has this very intense stare, and I love that the intense stare is mostly because he does not either can't handle contacts well, or contacts do not help with whatever he's got going on vision-wise. And Christopher Lambert normally wears glasses, so his intense stare is mostly because he can't fucking see, which is just funny as hell to me. And I have heard stories of him injuring co-stars in sword fights because, again, he can't fucking see. Very scary, very bold of people to go up in stage sword fighting against a person who cannot see what they're doing as well as they probably should be able to. But yeah, varied results here at capturing his face. I was trying to do a family portrait. We've got Ramirez. We've got his first wife. And Connor's first wife. We've got, and I'm failing at the names, which is sad as a fan. We've got his girlfriend from the first Highlander movie, and his girlfriend from the second or third Highlander movie, and his son, his adopted son, and Rachel, his adopted daughter, and Duncan MacLeod from the TV series. So we got a whole family portrait thing going on here. I was very happy with it at the time. In retrospect, I'm like, damn, those faces are janky as hell. But, oh well. This was supposed to be a young Balthazar Blake from Sorcerer's Apprentice with an homage to the original Disney Sorcerer's Apprentice thing where, like, the buckets and the brooms go wild and everything. I don't know if it was all going to be just in sepia tone or if I was going to do it full color, but kind of a shame I didn't finish it, because that's some pretty legit line art and perspective, and I had a good thing going there. Didn't finish it. Weird AU Connor McLeod from a role play with Balthazar Blake as well. Had to have him be a sea captain, which is kind of canon. I don't know if that was supposed to be child him. I don't know. As you get towards the end of the sketchbook, you can see I just kind of gave up. But we have some bonus stuff at the end. These are not sketchbook pages. But again, from my wife's comic, we have Hawker and Sage, and her character Third, who is not appreciating being hugged. Just a bunch of sketch stuff. I really like the combination of this kind of teal blue. It's way more teal in person, but that teal blue and brown. What else do we got? We got blank pages, blank pages. We got, there used to be all kinds of weird quizzes online that you would get of like, you know, get together your fan characters and you know, which one would you marry, which one would hunt or murder you, which one's better in the kitchen, all these different questions. You can see I was prepping answers. So we got Mosenrath, Zelgadis from Slayers, Owen Burnett, Dirk Gently. We got Tildak again. That is some excellent Tildak fan art. Sean Yu, a nicely stylized version of Connor. I'm not mad at the stylization there. And then what was probably supposed to be answers to some of the questions. Connor McLeod pointing out that Tildak's whole ass is just hanging out of that outfit, which it is. Dirk Gently looking at something. I don't know, looking at some papers. Couldn't tell you fully what was going on there. That is a friend's sketches for some puppet show stuff. We got Dirk Gently proposing to me. I don't know why. Sean Yu and Tildak giving some very skeptical looks, and Connor and Owen giving some protective but skeptical looks. Owen and Puck doing something. Again, I don't remember what all was going on. Very unfinished art of a cat pilot in a biplane. Is there anything else? That's the end of it. There's... Yep. Scrap paper. Anyways, so that is a lot of stuff. Boy, it is weird to look back on, you know, different ideas and stuff I had. It's definitely starting to feel more recent. And we have some sketches here from when I was helping with my friend Heidi of Barefoot Puppets doing some kind of stuff at a school when you had to have ID stickers. So obviously I took my sketchbook with me for that. I do still have several more sketchbooks to go. 2008 to 2010 there it looked like. I don't know exactly what years the next one covers, but a few years, and I do still have a current sketchbook that I'm working my way through, just to give you some idea. So yeah, I'm not the fastest at working my way through them because I do a lot of art outside of the sketchbooks, but yeah, until next time.